We are back again with Project Fierce, presented by Channel Q and A2 Music Productions. I'm Angelica Ross, here with Ryan Mitchell from Let's Go There with Shira and Ryan, right here on Channel Q. Now, I knew our next guest when she was the National Press Secretary for HRC, and now she done had a whole glow up as the first transgender state senator in this country, making her the highest ranking transgender official in United States history. Please welcome y'all, Sarah McBride. What's up, girl?
Hey, it's so good to see you both. I'm so excited to be on.
Yes, cool. It is so good to have you. Yes, this is amazing. It's amazing because, you know, look, I get a lot of, when I'm like working with people and know people in the movement or whatever, I get a lot of, you know, wow, Angelica, you know, you're doing this and you're on, doing that or what have you. And it's like, I have this similar thing with you where I'm just like, girl, like we were just doing this thing. And now I know you was already good with Biden. I knew you already had it good with Biden, and you have to tell us a little bit about your history with Biden. But I just really enjoyed seeing your rise specifically because you were one of those white people. Let me just make it plain. You are one of the white people that I know that carries an intersectional perspective. And I'm so glad that you're going to be holding office with that perspective. Can you tell us just a little bit about like, how did you even meet Biden? Because I know it was like before he wrote in your book, I know that was a hookup.
Which crazy, by the way.
Like, a hookup to have the president doing your, what do you do? Like the intro, the forward?
Did the forward. And when I was doing the research on that, I said, wow, I mean, how iconic and legendary is it to have President Biden? Like, tell us more about that.
I mean, I still pinch myself. It's so wild. You know, I'm from Delaware. I'm a state senator here in Delaware. And the saying in Delaware is everyone's dated, mated, or related. And so it's a small state. We all know one another. I like to say we're a state of neighbors. And so everyone here, you know, in some form or fashion knows Joe Biden. You know, he's spoken at their high school graduation. They see him at the ice cream shop or the pizza shop. They run into him at a parade. It's a small state, and it's a small community as a state. And so we get to know one another. I first met Joe Biden actually at a pizza shop when I was probably 11 years old. Wow. But I really got to know him working for his late son, Beau Biden, who was Delaware's attorney general, a reforming attorney general before there was really the kind of momentum we're seeing right now for meaningful criminal justice reform. I had a chance to intern on his campaign in 2006, and then I worked for him in 2010 on his campaign. And similar.
Can I ask you a question about that? Like, was your transness a conversation at all around this? Like, just meaning like, you know, because politically speaking, like everybody's here, there, or whatever, but like, okay, you're trans and working for for someone in the government. Like, so was that ever an issue or conversation?
So I actually wasn't out yet when I worked for Beau. I was still in the closet. I was in high school and a sophomore in college. And actually...
So wait, so you say you weren't out, because there's a lot of ways we were not out.
Right.
So wait, you're saying that, you weren't...
Very much in the closet, including myself. But I wasn't stealth. I was like in the closet. I hadn't...
You were just in the closet. You hadn't even... Got you.
Nope. And so when I first started working for Beau, and I really got to know Joe Biden through the eyes of his son, Beau. And, you know, a lot of times with these types of national politicians, the mythology that develops is really not rooted in reality. But the story between Beau and Joe is so real. And anyone who knows them knows that the love between them was about the deepest love between a parent and a child that I have ever seen in my life.
Wow.
And so I had the chance to work for Beau. And really, when I came out, Beau was one of the first people who reached out to me. And I remember I posted my coming out note, and that night I get a call from him. He's in the car with his wife, Hallie. And he's like, Sarah, without skipping a beat, just picks up my name, Sarah, I saw your note, and Hallie and I wanted you to know that we love you. We're so excited for you. We're there for you. And then within a year or so, he put his office's full support and effort behind our effort to pass a trans rights bill here in Delaware, and really championed that. And so, Bo was someone who was the real deal. And
do you think that that's impact has something to do with the fact that he knew a trans person, so then him going and being invested in doing those things and the impact that sort of ripple from that. Do you think like that it really has to do with knowing someone, regardless of what they're, because he didn't know that you were trans before, but just knowing and caring and knowing someone's a good person and then just wanting to fully support them?
I think that that's absolutely right. I think the sad reality is that sometimes it does take knowing someone in order to not just support the cause or their rights, but to really passionately prioritize their rights, because you see the humanity. And I think that's one of the biggest challenges that we face. One of the biggest needs is to create that proximity where it doesn't occur. And it's one of the reasons why diversity in government is so necessary. Diversity in any space is so necessary because it changes the conversations when we're at the table. And so I think inevitably it did impact Bo and deepen his passion and understanding of trans rights. And I think in many ways, similarly, Joe Biden, who was early to support marriage equality and certainly has prioritized LGBTQ rights over the last decade in terms of his agenda, I think in many ways, his passion comes too from knowing and loving Bo and wanting to carry on some of Bo's legacy as well.
Yeah, I think that's important to note, right? Because I often wonder, especially when President Joe Biden was president, just the Democratic nominee, right? And people just like, oh, he's running for president. People weren't sure that he was progressive enough to do what we needed him to do. And I wanted to know from someone who was so close, what we're seeing him do now. Should we be backing off a little bit on him, or should we continue to demand hey, push further? Let's actually move what we need to happen further.
Well, we should always be demanding change as quickly and as boldly as possible. Our leaders need that, and our country needs that. Our communities need that. And as an elected official now, I expect advocates not to say, oh, you're doing enough. Even if I'm working hard, even if I'm moving forward, advocates and activists and community members always need to hold our feet to the fire. And that's true for a president, a member of Congress, a state legislator, a city councilor, no matter what. And so no one should be letting up their pressure. No one should be pulling their feet off the pedal. But what I do think we have seen over the last 3 weeks or so of the new Biden administration is a boldness that I think a lot of people did not expect to see from him. And I think that's partly because Joe Biden, for his history in politics, at the end of the day, what we have seen in Delaware is that he listens. And I think he has listened to people and recognizes what the experiences are out there, what the needs are out there, and what the times and the challenges demand. And I think we will hopefully continue to see that kind of boldness from his administration reflecting what needs to be done.
Well, speaking of which, because I'm glad you put the invitation out there, Sarah. So girl, I'm gonna be Sarah, girl. Because look, holding to the fire. Listen, girl, what are we doing? What are we doing to protect Black trans women today, Sarah? So let me ask you, because I remember, we were all in the same room when I think it was like 2016 or something like that, when President Obama had the pride, when, we had pride celebrations at the White House. Those are coming again. I can feel it, but when we would have the pride celebrations, and I remember being there, and I could not hear, I didn't know what was happening because I had just met with Joe Biden and with President Obama. I got my photo, shook hands. I think you were there too, I think, right?
Yeah.
Was it that year? Yes. And so I just remember being, and then I hear someone yelling, and I did not know what was going on. I couldn't really hear what was going on. I was in the middle of a crowd, and then I hear, and all I hear then is stop deporting, trans women, and it was Genesect Gutierrez, calling out, through a sea of gays, trying to call to this issue. And I just remember them escorting her out, and then folks applauding in this whole moment. And I was like horrified in that moment. And, those are one of those moments when our allies don't know. They're not in their sort of advanced level of allyship, because they know how to do it in certain ways. But when we need you to show up for us in the room, when a trans woman of color who's talking about the immigration and deportation and how the brutality that they face at the hands of ICE, how we are not listening is horrifying. What do you think, one, that we've learned from that moment, and what do you think that we can expect from our administration now when it comes to prioritizing and protecting trans women of color?
Well, I remember that very well, that moment. And I remember standing in the East Room next to a couple colleagues when that occurred. And, it was heartbreaking to see a room full of LGBTQ people applauding the silencing of a trans woman of color. And, I think that I'm sure there were people in there that couldn't quite hear and didn't quite know, but that there were people who very clearly understood what was happening, and that they were applauding that because, they were supporters of President Obama. And, I remember looking around and a loved one of mine was clapping, and I could tell she was just clapping because everyone else was clapping, and she thought that was the right thing to do. I said, don't clap. And I remember having a long conversation with her after that experience to explain, what the issues were that need to be addressed, and why, it was more than appropriate. I remember President Obama said, this is my house. And in the back of my mind, and I'm someone who worked for President Obama. I admire him immensely, but I remember thinking, It's the people's house.
That part.
And,
right.
And Genesect was demanding dignity and fairness for people who too often have their voices silenced, who don't have access to that room, to that space, to that house. And so, I remember that. And I think it's such a profound example of how, in Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham city jail, he talked about how we will have to repent in our generation, not merely for the hateful words of the bad people, but for the appalling indifference of the good people. And that was a room full of people demonstrating indifference to the cause of trans immigrants. And I think the aftermath of that, years now later, we have seen, including people like President Obama and now President Biden, say that their policies around immigration were wrong. And they have come to that conclusion in the years since. And it's a reminder that when we are in the moment, to think about how the history will judge us and how we will be judged by future generations, and have our actions informed by what is right now and tomorrow and in the future. And to say, let's think outside of our box. We've got our political affiliation, we've got our support for President Obama, but let's also be willing to challenge the people that we support. And that's, I think, one of the most profound examples in my life of seeing that, and seeing a community I'm proud to be a part of fail to uphold that.
Speaking of now and tomorrow, You say tomorrow will be different. Love, loss, and the fight for trans equality. So what do you hope that the Biden-Harris administration will be able to accomplish? What do you hope will be different?
Well, first off, the title of my book, Tomorrow Will Be Different, isn't that tomorrow will be better? Is that tomorrow will be different? And that's true. And sometimes it's a step forward and sometimes it's a step backwards, but that we have within our power the ability to inform and dictate and impact, whether it's a step forward or whether it's a step backward. And my hope in this current administration is of course, that we will see them continue to restore the protections and the regulations that were adopted during the 8 years of the Obama administration. It is, of course, that we will see President Biden lend his name to the Equality Act when he signs it into law. But more so than that, my hope is that the story of this chapter in the fight for equality at the federal level is not just us achieving legal equality, but actually pursuing true lived equality for people in our community, where we put our money where our mouth is, where we're not just passing laws that say you can't discriminate, but also saying, let's put money into communities of color and for particularly trans folks of color in terms of job opportunities, in terms of educational opportunities, in terms of housing. Because we know that we can pass all the non-discrimination laws we want, but at the end of the day, so much of the discrimination and in particular violence that folks in the trans community are facing is not just a byproduct of transphobia, it's also a byproduct of racism and misogyny and poverty. Yes. And if we don't address all of those things, then we will only achieve dignity and opportunity for the most privileged in our own communities. And so my hope is that we see, a higher minimum wage, a $15 minimum wage, if not higher. My hope is that we see paid family and medical leave, because we've got a lot of people who are giving up income when they're forced to deal with an illness, that we have a system, a justice system that is truly reformed and reimagined, that invests in empowering rather than punishing. My hope is that we will address all of those issues and recognize that intersectional lens, and that the next chapter of our equality movement is the chapter of not just non-discrimination protections, not just marriage equality, but actually true investment in our communities. And I believe that that's where the Biden administration wants to go. It's certainly where I want to go in my work here in the Delaware legislature. And I believe that we have a unique moment right now to do that. COVID-19 has laid bare the structural inequities in our society even more so, and the crisis demands that kind of action. And I do hope that we in elected office meet that responsibility.
I am nervous, though, because what we witnessed after President Obama, people got really relaxed. They were like, oh, racism is gone because we got a Black man in the White House. And so for me, I wonder, how do we keep people politically engaged? Now that, Trump is out of there, we have Biden, Harris, we're making some historical moves. We're seeing this inclusive, diverse administration. What's going to stop people from being like, all right, well, I think we got everything?
It's such a great point. And I think there's a two-pronged approach. There is a group of folks who stop their advocacy, who stop their activism because Donald Trump's out of the White House, right? There's that community of folks who think, okay, we've solved the issue. Donald Trump was the threat. To that group, we've got to make clear, and I hope the last 4 years has helped to dissuade them of this, that it's not about the single person in the White House. It's about all of the problems, all of the prejudices that fed into and allowed for someone like Donald Trump to win the White House and serve as president. And that those issues didn't disappear in November. And January 6th, the insurrection we saw, the white supremacist insurrection we saw, should dissuade us of the notion that simply winning an election makes that disappear. It is still here. It is still a force, and it is still very much a threat. And so I think we have to make clear to those folks, the ones who are probably more like me, who are white, privileged, who have a job, who aren't seeing their material livelihoods impacted on a day-to-day basis, to make clear that the things that you were fighting with Donald Trump, those are still present in our country. The second thing is people who have so much on the line and stop engaging because they become discouraged because elected officials don't deliver real change. And I think to keep those individuals still active and engaged, that's on people like me to deliver real results, to prove to them that their advocacy, that their activism is worth it. And that is, I think, when I talk about meeting this moment, that is part of the responsibility, to prove that it is worth it, that our system isn't so broken and flawed that we can't actually do big things. And if we do that, I think we will also keep a lot of people engaged, recognizing that there is hope for a better tomorrow.
Absolutely. So you talk about, I love listening, and this is why I love Sarah. And those of you that are listening, this is why, like, I was really excited about this conversation, because again, we have been at the conferences, talking and teaching and learning on racial justice, on intersectionality, sort of on all these things. And, over time, I've seen it in the movement where things can get very whitewashed. And you can have then people in leadership who only mention Black trans people as a footnote, or who can't sort of center what they're talking about around the most marginalized. When you come from an area like Delaware and in those spaces, do you, because let me tell you, I don't know if we can clone you or if we just need to, I know there's the Victory Institute that definitely helps, bring up LGBTQ politicians. But one, I'm really excited to see you, on the Hill with, like Ayanna Pressley and AOC and folks like that, just joining some really bad women, who are some really tough women who are out there doing some amazing things. But how do you see your position in politics opening more doors and opportunities for trans people and specifically even trans people of color to be more engaged?
It's something I think about constantly. First and foremost, being the first of anything doesn't matter if you're also the last. And I feel very strongly that my job here, obviously, first and foremost, is to represent this district that I'm privileged to serve, a district that is as diverse as the state of Delaware. Really, one of the reasons why I love it is it looks like the state of Delaware as a whole. But one of the responsibilities I have is to not leave a Sarah-sized hole in the wall, to not require that someone needs to be a clone of me in order to get a seat at the table, but that my job is to not just leave that hole in the wall, but to actually bring down the wall and to address any of those barriers that keep anyone, whether they're a trans person of color, an undocumented person, whether they're a person living in poverty or a person living at the intersection of all of those identities, any of the barriers that stand in their way to full and free participation in our society and a meaningful role in our democracy. That's what my job requires. And I feel that every single day. And I feel that even more because I am one of the first. And so hopefully at the end of the day,
do you think that we could start talking decriminalization stuff?
Ooh.
Do you think that you because I know you already on the conference. I know you already know what I'm talking about, yeah. But I'm wondering, do you feel like you have the ability to now bring that conversation into the spaces you now have access to?
Yeah, I absolutely think that, one, we need to continue the outside game, the outside activism, the outside push. We need to continue to educate people. But absolutely, I think we are absolutely at a point, and we're seeing more elected officials across the country bringing up bold solutions like decriminalizing sex work, like a real public health approach to substance use disorder rather than a criminalization approach. You're seeing more and space for candidates and elected officials to bring those newer-ish ideas or new to the sort of public discourse ideas to the table. And I think you're increasingly seeing more people receptive to it because we've shifted how people are thinking. And even if they don't necessarily know where the right place to be on that one issue is, they're much more amenable to hearing the arguments and hopefully in the end being persuaded to join the right side of history.
Do you think?
Just let me know when you need me, Sarah, though, because listen, I know my number ain't changed or my email. Listen, when it's time when you need that backup, you know who to call, Sarah. You know who to call.
I will, and ditto.
Yes.
That number has not changed either.
Yeah, let me get into the DC crew. I'm trying to find me a DC man. Look, I will come over there and get me into some politics. But I think
you got to wait till they clean that area out. They got to clean a lot out of the swamp.
No, but I seriously do. I do think oftentimes, especially what we're seeing, and Biden was so about unification and unifying this country, it oftentimes feels like that is off the table. It doesn't feel like we should be just kind of waiting to kumbaya and hold hands with folks. Why aren't we seeing Democrats kind of, big up and grow, and actually push for certain things? It sometimes feels like there's a lack of that, in my opinion.
Yes, Sarah. Because listen, let me tap on it because yes, I'm all about the reaching across. And I know Joe Biden is the reach across the aisle dude. He would all day, every day. But some things happened. Some really, some things you just can't backpedal from and pretend that they didn't happen and then just want to kumbaya. So where do you see, how do you see progress happening when there are folks that maybe there needs to be more accountability than there is like coming together?
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that they tried during the course of the inauguration to really make clear that when they were talking about unity, they weren't just talking about the absence of tension, right? They weren't just talking about everyone joining hands and pretending like everything's perfect. They were talking about unity and purpose, unity and action. They were talking about recognizing that the diversity of our country is our strength. And that kind of unity doesn't mean uniformity. That kind of unity doesn't mean consensus. That type of unity is, I think, a more profound, more just version of unity. And based on what the president said in his inaugural address, and actually Amanda Gorman spoke to this in her incredible poem at the inauguration. And let me just say, I've had the chance of knowing Amanda Gorman for years, and she is she is absolutely spectacular.
I'm jealous.
But it's about a unity that I think is summed up in, not to quote Dr. King again, but it is summed up in the idea that true peace is not merely the absence of tension, it's the presence of justice. And it's that kind of unity. It's that type of unity in action and in purpose, and unity in recognizing our differences and our diversity make us stronger. And if you can't accept that type of unified purpose, that type of unified action, then you're opting out of our democracy. You're opting out of the conversation.
Well, I'm just hoping not too many people opt out. That's all I'm saying, is like that folks really want to get to this place, like you say, of justice, because sometimes we just have a different idea of what justice is in this country. And I just pray that we reach to a place where we understand that justice is for all. That's what it was meant to be for. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining me for this conversation. Just know that, yes, I'm gonna put you on speed dial because we got work to do this year. I'm gonna make sure you have my direct number too, just so anything you need me to show my celebrity face up somewhere, because that's what I know is sometimes what makes things move too. So just let me know what you need, and I will definitely reach out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And let me just quickly say, it is an absolute pleasure to watch your incredible meteoric rise and all of the amazing work that you're doing. It's amazing to see, and you are inspiring so many, myself included.
I mean, say
Ain't it been a trip, girl?
Here's the thing. I'm like honored to be sitting here in the midst of you two. It's like, it's just incredible to see the work and to just hear the conversations. Everyone needs this type of education. Seriously. Everyone needs it. And so I'm hoping that's what our listeners are getting.
Just know, people, you listening, Sarah McBride's a real one. She's a real one. All right. So like, just whatever we can do to support her work and support the things that she's doing. She's the real one. Thank y'all.
Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe and hit that bell for all notifications from radio.com. While you're at it, why don't you check out some of our other great videos?